Hello, all, and welcome to a new episode of the Horror Countdown podcast. I'm your host, Don Anelli, and with me tonight is a special guest, filmmaker, actress, and podcaster, Rebecca Rinehart.
Hello, I am here to talk about my favorite subject, 80 slashers.
Indeed, we are, yeah. So this one was kind of a no-brainer in terms of scheduling. I think I even said to this when I pitched it to you that this was kind of the first choice amongst the available topics. We're doing 1980s one-shot slasher films, so no sequels, no remakes, and no other special entries. Is at least as far as the current day stands. I mean, we can probably make this irrelevant tomorrow with news of a sequel or remake coming out, but
I eliminated one for that very reason.
exactly, yeah, I think I know where you're coming
Yeah,
from because I
like,
eliminated the same one for
yeah.
that very reason. Yeah. So, at least as far as the day we're recording this, there's no other entries for the for the franchise to go forward as is. So,
Right. And to be honest, I started just going off the top of my head and just writing them down. I got to 15 and had to stop and I could have kept going. So I had to
yeah,
eliminate a lot. So one was like, well, I mean, yeah, it probably isn't a slasher. Okay, yeah.
yeah, my process was kind of similar. I kind of went through and was like, all right, here's about 20 that I have. I can
Uh-huh.
probably, I can probably go with, and then all right, well, I like this one better than that one, so okay, I can get rid of that one. This one's not really much of a slasher. I can, put that one aside. And
Yep.
yeah, it's kind of surprising how that kind of whittles your list down a little bit quicker. So, but
So hopefully we will come up with, I'm sure we have a lot of the same ones, but hopefully we'll come up with some movies that people haven't really seen because they are just one shot.
right, yeah, I'm probably gonna be a little generous and say our top five could potentially be a general random order. My five is your three, your two is my one or something.
Probably.
I mean, I would probably be safe to say just because I mean those are kind of like the big ones in the scene. But yeah, I'm kind of curious as to where 6 through 10 are, just because I think that's going to be the more interesting kind of what slots above which one, and which one is like, oh crap, why didn't I think of that one? Or I could have sworn I did, that one wasn't a slasher to me, but you say it is. So I mean,
Yep.
I think that's going to be kind of where a lot of the variations on our list are going to go.
Yep.
All right. So if that's the case, let's get started. Let's see what number 10 is.
All right. My number 10 is a movie that I hear a lot of podcasters say is boring. And I wanted it to be on this list because I personally don't think it's boring. That's 1981's The Prowler, with fantastic effects from Tom Savini. It's got a similar feel to My Bloody Valentine, just with the guy with the mask. He's got on the gas mask the whole time. He doesn't have a lot of personality per se. The story is a little thinner than others, but I really dug it. I don't think it was really worthy of a sequel. And I should say that a lot of these, me putting them on my list did not mean that I think that they should have had sequels or remakes. Some movies are better just left alone. But that is my number 10.
Nice. Yeah. I've got that on my list. So
All right.
I'll yeah I'll mention that one in due course. But my number 10 is kind of similar. It's another one that I've heard a lot of people say it doesn't really have like a lot going for it, but I've always really enjoyed it. It's 1982 Superstition.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. I know that this one kind of it has like that great beginning where you have the backstory involving the witch and how she is cursed to live at the house, but after that I kind of enjoy a lot of what goes on here. The family moving in and a lot of the supernatural accidents, which I mean, yeah, okay, they're not necessarily true slasher scenes. I mean, they're supernatural and based because it's the witch gathering her powers and all that, but I mean, the final half of this one is crazy. I love the atmosphere in there. The kills are really fun and fast. It's like a really fun and fast-paced film. So I've always really enjoyed it, and I know it's not necessarily one that a lot of people really have a fondness for, but I've always felt it was pretty fun. So yeah, my number 10 is Superstition.
All right. All right. Well, my number nine is a movie from Tommy McLaughlin, the director of Friday the 13th Part 6, but it is a he did in 1983 called One Dark Night with Meg Tilly. She is basically auditioning for like the pink ladies for her school, except for they wear purple jackets. In her initiation, the girls don't really like her, and her initiation is to stay in a very brightly lit mausoleum all night. And I always really liked that that contrast. I liked it with Phantasm. I love it with this. Of everything's really bright, you can see everything, but danger is still around the corner. So yeah, if you haven't seen it, there's some things that happen in it that are pretty cool. And yeah, One Dark Night.
Cool. I had that one on my list when I initially made my 20, but it kind of just dropped off because I like others a little more.
All
But
right, fair
that
enough.
one was yeah. I still think really highly of it. I do like what you're saying about its tone is kind of like a little bit more sophisticated than a normal just teen hack 'em up. But yeah, I kind of just when I started putting it together, that one just fell a little bit off because I liked others more. But
Which is
it
totally fine because it made it
yeah
to
it
my list.
yeah, I mean, I initially had it on my top 20 or so, but yeah, that one it's still one I think highly of. I like others more, but great choice, yeah. So my number 9, one that I don't really see a lot of people really mentioning all that much, and I don't really know why because it's a lot of fun. The Dorm That Dripped Blood.
Oh yeah,
Exactly, yeah. I've always really enjoyed this one. I think it's got a fantastic setup, which is exactly what you want in a slasher. The kills are kind of fun. They kind of go a giallo route because the identities of who the killer is the main driving point, so you don't see who it is. And the one thing for me that really kind of won me over when I first saw it is I love the finale of this. I mean, there's two fantastic twists, one revolving around who the killer is, and then the second one revolving how he gets away with it. Which,
right.
yeah, that may be a slight spoiler, but wait until
Hey.
you see wait until you see what happens with the final 5 minutes of this, because it's a doozy. And I've always thought that really made it stick out much more so than a lot of other films. Trying to go with a more optimistic ending. This one has a bit more of a downer ending, but it's one that I haven't really seen pulled off all that often. So I'm kind of surprised most or more don't remember it for that. So yeah, had to put it on my list at number 9.
Yeah, I dig that movie. That didn't make it to my short list, but definitely would have been on there had I just kept going because I got to about 15 and that's where I was like, okay, you just might as well stop. But yeah, I dig that
Uh,
movie. And that's I never know how to say her name, but that was the film debut of Daphne Zanuga. Is that how you say her name? From The
uh,
Initiation and
Close enough.
Melrose
Yeah,
Place. Yeah,
yeah,
Spaceballs.
yeah. I think that's probably like the main claim to fame with it, but yeah, that's the one because she's I think one of the first victims, if not the
Yes.
first. Yeah,
Yeah, because her parents come to pick her up, and
right.
well,
Yeah,
it doesn't go well for any of them. Oh,
right.
sorry, spoilers. Okay,
No, it's okay. Yeah, I mean, I
my
kind of gave away the ending, but good
yeah,
enough.
my number eight is a very bizarre offbeat movie that got picked up by Troma in 1986. It was directed by Jim Mellon of Mystery Science Theater 3000 fame, and it's called Blood Hook. It is more of a horror comedy question mark. I mean, some of the kills are really brutal. But the killer himself and why he kills is the most ridiculous premise that I've ever seen. I think there's no way that you could remake this movie, and that's one of the things I love about it. Um, and yeah, there was no reason for a sequel. But this just is one of my favorites. I watch it probably every 6 months, and there's a little tune that plays through the whole movie that if you watch it, it's you're going to be singing it the rest of the week.
Nice. I'm gonna have to check this one out. I don't think I've seen it.
It's pretty wacky. It's very
Hmm,
wacky.
nice. I'm always down for wacky stuff. So yeah, I'm gonna have to look at that one because I don't think I've seen it. All right. So moving on to my number eight. This is one that I even though I don't have the physical copy itself, I know there's probably going to be a little bit of resurgence in of interest in it just because it just recently got released in a brand spanking new 4K edition. I'm talking 1981's Madman.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I've always really liked this. It's just a formulaic, simple slasher. Everybody just goes missing, and then encounter with a killer is just somebody saying, "Oh, I got to go look for so and so, they're missing," or "I got to go look for them, they're missing," and everybody. It's just finally down to whoever's left alive. But I've always really liked it. It's a you know killer in the woods. Urban legend comes to life, kind of a thing. Nothing too spectacular, nothing too fancy, but it just gets the job done. Fantastic killer, great urban legend backstory. You get some great kills along the way. You have one of the most utterly ridiculous and bizarre sex scenes I've ever seen in a film.
Oh
Uh,
yes.
yeah, man, to know how many drugs were on the set when they came up with that one, the mind boggles.
Yeah. So,
um,
if you know anybody who knows me knows that this is going to make my list. So I'll talk about it when I get to it.
yeah, no
And
worries. I
I'm one
figured.
of the idiots who plunked down the money for the new release, even though it supposedly doesn't have anything different than the last Blu-ray release as far as extras. But hey, when you're a fan, you're a fan.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, what's the
So
point of
yeah,
having a paycheck and a job if you don't spend your money on stupid
exactly.
crap like a new release of Madman?
Exactly, yeah. So like I said, I mean, I figure this one's probably going to get a little bit of interest just because of its new release, but yeah, I've always had fun with it regardless. So for me, number eight was Madman.
All right. So I'm to my number 7, which is, I will just go ahead and just say it. It's 1980's Motel Hell. So it takes all kinds of critters. um, this movie is bizarre. I think I rented it at a very young age because of the cover, and you've got people's heads sprouting from the ground. It really is like it's a horror comedy. Um, I don't think I thought that when I was a kid, but it is just goofy as hell. It's hilarious that it's called Motel Hell, which if you're younger and you go to the video store, that name, you're like, oh yeah, Motel Hell. What? But it's just cool that it was really Motel Hello, and the O kind of just keeps glitching out on the sign. And I just always really dig this movie, and I'm glad that nobody redid it. I think it was kind of lightning in a bottle. um, so yeah.
Yeah, it's on my honorable mentions. It was one of my ones. Yeah, that one. I've always liked that one as well. Just how utterly weird and bizarre it is that there's this love triangle going on between this girl, her boyfriend, and then this guy that's old enough to be her father, and then he's got this weird relationship with his sister, and it all just combines into this weird cocktail of a slasher film with this chainsaw fight with this pig-headed killer at the end.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Yeah,
Beautiful.
it's great. I'm a big fan of that one as well. So yeah, I mean, like I said, it was on my honorable mentions, but for my number seven, I went with another one that's kind of in similar vein to Dorm the Drip Blood, in that I don't really hear a lot of people talk about it as much anymore. Another 1981 film, I went with Hell Night.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I've always been a big fan of this one. I think it's got one of those great setups. Pledges, trying to get into the get it trying to pledge their fraternity, spend the night in a haunted house, and then find out that there's a killer still among. You don't really need much else in those kinds of films. Just you've got the group of people outside that are oblivious to everything. You've got the rest of the fraternity that are trying to pull pranks on everyone. So you're kind of like you're not necessarily sure which one's the prank and which one's the killer coming for them. So it adds like a nice little bit of false scares here and there. Finale is a lot of fun. I really enjoy it. You've got Linda Blair, who's far too old and far too busty to be a college freshman, running around in
Oh,
these
but she looks great in that costume, though.
oh, that's not yeah. Parts of me were not denying that. Yeah, parts of me were not denying that fact. But yeah, that was a lot of fun. I really like the finale. The way that they get rid of the killer is one of the more inventive and brutal ways I've seen, and I've had a lot of fun with it. Probably could be cut short by about 5 to 10 minutes because I think it runs a little long, but I don't really worry about that. It's a good time and definitely worth looking into. So
And I,
number
I might be wrong about this. I'm trying to look it up on IMDb really fast, but I think it's the only other horror movie that Peter Barton from Friday the 13th Part 4 did. Handsome
yeah,
fella.
indeed, yeah. I know he did a bunch of soap operas after he'd left
Yeah.
the genre. Yeah.
Hey, hey, no harm there. It's funny that you say 1981 because I had to stop writing down 1981 movies. I mean, 1981 is the golden year for horror, especially slashers. I could have done my top 10 probably from 81. So I tried to be a little different.
Yeah, yeah, no, I was exactly the same way. It's like, how many of these movies came out this one specific year?
I know, and I kept feeling stupid for it, and I was like, okay, come on, something had to come out like in the second half of the decade, and
Yeah.
I got a couple. Um,
No, yeah, same
so
here. But yeah, I know the pain of trying not to do 1981 only films.
yeah,
But
mine is heavy in the first few years of the decade. So my number six is actually from 1983, and it is a film called Curtains. It is about, and it actually has a lot more to it, I think. It's about a woman who is an actress who is trying desperately to capture a crazy woman's uh, character, and actually puts herself, along with her producer, puts herself into an insane asylum. She gets stuck there, and he ends up having this casting call where he invites basically these girls that are all completely different, but they all look very similar, and they're all competing for the same role. And it's got some awesome kills. The fact that all of the girls do different things, like there's one that's an ice skater, spoiler alert. There is one that's a comedian. They all had these different things, and it all plays into their deaths. I just always really like that, and I always really am still creeped out by the mask that the killer wears.
yeah, it was another one that I was kind of like on with the initial group that I came up with. But I've never really been a huge fan of it, other than like you said, The Mask is probably top five all time. I mean, that thing is just legendary and terrifying. But other than the one ice skating scene, I've never really been a big fan of the film. So it kind of was one of the early ones to drop. But it was an initial one that I came up with. So it's not like I truly hate it. It's just never one that really caught on for me. But
Yeah, I like the ending. It has a little bit of a surprise to it, and
mm,
yeah. So again, I'm not trying to give a whole lot of spoilers, but
yeah. All right. So my number six. I mean, we were talking about the early part of the decade and how stacked 80 and 81 is. So it kind of forced me to look a little bit deeper. So I went at the other end of the decade, and I went with 1989's Intruder. So I really like this one. Again, a really fun, simple setup. Nothing too major, nothing too, over the top. Just, the over the top nature is reserved for the kills, which I really appreciate. Especially the uncut version, which has some of the greatest kills I've ever seen in the genre. They're really fun and over the top. Not necessarily the greatest killer, which kind of drops it down just a touch for me. But I mean, I get the rampage. It's just the motivation is a little underwhelming. But
Yeah, he's a little
oh,
misguided.
yeah, it's not necessarily the right. You know, I the enthusiasm is there, but just the mindset to think, going from point A to point B by the methods that he chooses to do here just don't really mesh for me. But I mean, that's not necessarily a major fault of the film itself. I mean, the rest of it's a lot of fun. So it was one that made my list pretty easily. So for me, number 6 was Intruder.
For me, number 5 is Intruder. So
Oh,
that's why I've been so quiet.
oh,
I
nice.
dig this movie. I love anything that takes place in a store after hours. So the Initiation, I already talked about, shopping mall, any of those things. And this one has a really good atmosphere because these people are they're used to being there. They've got a very large group. It doesn't seem like anything could go wrong. You do have a red herring with the boyfriend. And yeah, so if you if you've never seen it before, spoiler alert, don't look at the cover because the modern artwork, I don't think this was the artwork that it came out with, but the modern artwork shows that the killer is Danny Hicks, and that's supposed to be a surprise, but it's not because he's chopping shit up on the cover. What does it say? He's just crazy about supermarkets or something.
Yeah,
Um,
it's like I'm just crazy about this
that's
store. Yeah,
yeah.
something like
Um,
that. Yeah.
yeah, and I think a lot of people would watch it. And I do know I have a friend who is he's very into film, um, and he said, well, yeah, I watched this movie because it said that like Sam Raimi and Ted Raimi and which Ted Raimi is a fairly decent sized character in that, and Bruce Campbell are in it. He's like, I watched that. You can, blink and you miss them, but it's like he's like, I'm glad that they used that false advertising. I wouldn't have watched it otherwise, and it ended up being a really great movie. So yeah, Intruder. If you've not seen that one, it is on Tubi. I watch that. That's one of those ones that every so often, maybe every few weeks, I'm cleaning the house or something, and I just need something that I'm familiar with. That I'll use that for background noise because I dig that
Mm,
movie.
nice. Yeah. Yeah. Guess big fans of it for both of us.
Yeah,
So yeah, cool. All right. So since we're ping ponging back and forth between one end of the decade and the other, might as well go full bore back to the front half of this and hit 1980 with Terror Train. Um, Yeah, I know technically there's a film from like 2008 or 9 called Train was initially planned as a remake, but it's not necessarily one in execution. So that one kind of made me put this one on my list. Um, it's a fun, top tier classic for me. Great atmosphere. David Copperfield as a swarmy magician is
oh,
just absolute gold. Uh,
swoon.
I mean, his scenes in the film are just absolute gold. He almost steals the film. Yeah, they're so much fun. Just his swarmy attitude and just the way he puts everything puts everybody down for what he's doing. Great kills, fun killer. I love the disguise and the twist with the reveal and everything and all that. Classic. Bullied teen comes back for revenge kind of a storyline that you don't necessarily need to reinvent the wheel. You just need to, put out a competent product, and I'll be happy with it. So, yeah, for me, one of the highlights of the golden age, number 5 is Terror Train.
Yeah, we now this did not make my list. We did do this for our January episode of the Slumber Party Massacre podcast. Lacey and I were just like, yeah, it's fun, man. It's just a fun, dumb movie. The other three girls weren't so into it. I was really surprised they were as poo-poo on it as they were. I had a huge crush on David Copperfield when I was a kid. So, I mean, I just see him like that's like the era, like when he first came out, and like, so I watch it still, and I'm like, oh, and just the whole idea that you're on this speeding train that can't stop, even if you go outside, you're still in danger. They do some dumb stuff, like take everybody outside and then do a not so thorough train search and then go, okay, everybody get back on. But
Yeah.
yeah, I always dug this one. And I do tend to watch it every year. It's one of the ones I watch for New Year's.
Nice. Yeah. Definitely appropriate.
So my number four, we've talked about it briefly, is 1981's Madman. It is a film I didn't even know about it until the early 2000s. Uh, and I had so I'm old. So we had this HD TV before there was any HD content. Because that was the kind of person I used to be. Like, I used to buy the best TV at Best Buy that was like right at the front. You're not supposed to buy for like 2 years. That was always the one that I would buy. So a satellite company called Boom came out, and they had like 12 channels of all HD content, and it was the same shit over and over, mostly stuff you didn't want to watch. But there was one channel called Monsters HD, and I used to have that on 24/7. Like, that was always on my TV. They had all the Friday the 13th. This is where I got into the Blind Dead movies. They played a lot of things because it's like HBO back in the 80s. They had like 10 movies and they just play them over and over. And Madman was one of them. And I had never seen the movie. And, I watched it and I was like, this is a pretty groovy little movie. I dug it, it wasn't anything great. My kiddo was about 3 at the time. And you've got to admit, the music in this movie is so good. I mean,
Mm.
Madman has like 3 versions of his theme. I'm a sucker for anybody with a self-referential theme song to start out with. But every time the intro would come on, it'd be like dun 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 dun. My little toddler would run in, being, "Are you watching Madman Mars?" And we would sit there and watch it. And so I have all these like warm, fuzzy memories of that, and I still like it. Yes, the hot tub scene is like one of my favorite scenes ever. Um, but um, one of the things I like about it is that all the people are very normal. They didn't get like super attractive, uh, thin, cutesy people. Like, they got normal looking people, and you can actually feel terror for them. Um, so anybody who wants to shit on Madman, no, it's essentially Friday the 13th Part 2, Madman, and The Burning all came out in 1981. They essentially have the same plot. Madman is usually the one everybody puts at the bottom, but I love it.
Nice. Yeah. That's pretty cool. Yeah, I ended up, and we barely got our TV at like 2008 when we finally switched over to HD, and that was right when Monsters HD folded. So we got it
Mm-hmm.
for. So yeah, we probably got it for maybe 2 3 months, and then the thing folded. So that was kind of disappointing.
I can say honestly, Monsters HD is what got me into the horror community as well, because they had a website and there were very few of us. There was a chat room that somebody created on there. And I remember like being on there, and like we would quiz each other like about silly things, like just things that like you could look up readily now, but like we would like quiz each other like, what's the name of the restaurant that like Paul references in Friday the 13th Part 2, like stupid stuff like that. And there were probably maybe 20 people in this chat room, and that was the first horror group I was ever part of. And so I will always, and I actually still have my t-shirt from Monsters HD. It's just I just cut out the logo because it got a little bit messed up, but I will always have a place in my heart for Monsters HD for that reason.
Oh, nice. Oh, it's pretty cool.
Hmm.
Yeah. Well,
And do you know that you are the first person that I've been to who actually knew what that was? I've
Wow.
posted it online several times. Like, hey, did anybody else watch Monsters HD? I posted it in groups. I posted it on my own feed. No one. So, hey, thanks, man. I
No
didn't just
problem
make it
here.
up.
Yeah, no, I vividly remember it. Because that was we only had it for like maybe 2 or 3 months before it went
Yeah.
under. But yeah, I remember watching a lot of that, a lot of stuff there too. There was like just a whole, but it was like a whole mess of like indie stuff and like obscure 80s and 90s slashers that I'd never heard of. But yeah, no, I can verify that that thing 100% did exist. So
Okay, good.
yeah, no worries. There's no Mandela effect here.
Yeah.
You're in good hands. But yeah, interesting you mentioned Friday the 13th and Burning because number four is The Burning. Um, yeah, this one was kind of a one of the obvious ones that stuck out for me and was a no doubt no brainer kind of an inclusion. Iconic killer, iconic setup, great kills. I've kind of gotten a little. I the first half of this is kind of a little bit of a sore point over the years. I kind of go back and forth whether or not I like a lot of the pranks and gender wars that goes on. Some of it kind of just lessens the terror because Cropsy's not on screen as much. But then there's also times where it's like, this is actually just like a fun group of people, and there's like a lot of you. I really get to know who they are, and I really get to care for them. So it kind of like, it balances out between, do I actually want to care about the characters or do I just want a 90-minute special effects demo reel? And the Burning is always one that goes back and forth for me between whichever one I want. Because there's times where, like I want just like, the fast pace in your face kills and just over the top, makeup effects. And then there's others where I like the, slow methodical, let's just, get a group of people, a small group of people, like them and care about them, and then put them in danger. So it kind of has like it kind of flip flops back and forth how I feel about it, but it's always one that stays with me just because I can care for it in both manners. So yeah, this one, like I said, a no doubt no brainer, but easy choice for me at number four, The Burning.
Okay, so I said that I had to employ some different methods of eliminating. Um, and there's one that I'm sure we'll talk about in a minute. The burning was the one that I eliminated for a few reasons. Number one, because it was another 1981 movie. And I was like, okay, and I had already put The Prowler on, and I'm like, another Tom Savini movie. But the thing that made me put it into honorable mentions was I feel like so many people love this movie because they're like, oh my God, they think of what could have been. We could have had another major franchise. We could have had another Jason, another Freddy, another Michael. We could have had Cropsy. If only like people knew and things had gone differently, and there's this whole like alternate universe sort of thing, I think, in people's minds. And that's the only reason I didn't pick it is because so many people like it because they think it should have had a sequel. And I was kind of avoiding those types of movies. But I also knew you would put it on your list, so I.
Yeah,
But I do love this
yeah,
movie. The boys are so rapey and gross, and then to find out that the story was written by Harvey Weinstein,
yeah.
it's
Yeah,
just there's so much like grossness in this, but
yeah, that's another factor that a lot of people kind of fail to mention is yeah, exactly that.
I mean, I find it charming because I find it charming and kind of sickening, but no, I always love that. And of course Jason Alexander, and Fisher Stevens, the iconic raft scene. Yeah, this totally deserves to be in our top tens. I like I said, I omitted it
Yeah,
for reasons.
that's perfectly valid. Yeah, no problem here.
Now my number three we just did on the Slumber Party Massacre podcast yesterday, so that will be coming out for our next episode in April, and that is Bloody Birthday. It is actually one of my favorite movies of all time. On the podcast, I was really happy because 3 out of 5 had not seen this movie, and the three who hadn't seen it loved it. Um, it is a killer kid movie like that you've never seen before. I mean, you don't just get one killer kid; you get three of them. And the main kid killer, Debbie, is just terrifying to me. She's just adorable, blonde, dimples, um, and it just she plays it off so well. I found it sad that the actress Elizabeth Hoy didn't really do a whole lot after this. Um, but I just dig that movie a lot, and it actually it was set up to have a sequel. They set it up to have a sequel. I'm not exactly sure why the sequel never happened. I'm glad that they didn't, because I think this is a good standalone slasher.
If we went to 11, this was my pick. Honorable
Oh,
mention for me. Yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm a big fan of it as well. I mean, yeah, like I said, it's almost technically my number 11. So yeah, yeah, I really like it as well. I mean, those kids are just absolute brats, and I love them for it.
oh yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one. All right, so I mean, wow, synchronicity. Talking about killer kids. This one's maybe not necessarily truly killer kids, but at least they started as killer kids. 1987's Blood Rage.
Nice.
Yeah, I've always had a lot of fun with this one. I love the setup. I love the fact that the two guys are so polar opposites of each other, but it's the one guy playing dual roles, so he's able to pull them both off effectively. Just absolutely great kills. An infectious, goofy, cheesy series of one-liners. Great makeup effects. Holiday setting that you don't necessarily get too often. Not too many Thanksgiving movies because it's almost
No.
always this one or I think Poultrygeist is often the other one that I see associated.
Home Sweet Home.
Home Sweet Home, yeah, that
Yeah.
one. But yeah, I mean, there's kind of like like a small little crop of three or four that always tend to pop up at the end of November in all these podcasts. So yeah, it's warranted. It's a lot of fun. Yeah, definitely one that stands out for a lot of reasons. So again, kind of like Burning, another no brainer, no doubt about it, kind of an entry. So one that I have less issues with, so I put it above the Burning. But number 3 for me is Blood Rage.
And that did not make it to my list, but it definitely is on my list. I love Blood Rage, and um, there are so many charming things about that. So many great kills. I mean, when I guess she's like the therapist when she gets killed, it's amazing. And I think the main actor does a good job. He does a great job, and yeah, it's not cranberry sauce, everybody.
Mm,
Uh,
nope.
okay, so we're getting down to the last two. Ooh, exciting.
Mm.
Okay, so my number two is another movie from 1981. And I think the only reason that this doesn't get talked about as much as some of the other ones is because just the market was flooded with slashers. This one was a little smarter, a little scarier, a little less polished than some of the other ones, and that's Just Before Dawn. Um, I have several reasons why I dig this movie. The first is that the people who are in it, they're a little bit older. They're in their 20s, and the guy actually has the deed to this land that if somebody in his family had, they used to go out there. And so they are exactly where they should be. And just the fact that it's older people going to a place that they should be, and as opposed to young people going to a place they shouldn't be. It really it really solidifies it. And there's some really just tense scenes in this. I've just always really dug it. So yeah, Just Before Dawn.
Wow. I wasn't expecting a synchronicity like this. 1981's Blood Rage number 2.
Oh,
We
and you already
tied.
said
No,
you
I'm saying we tied we have it at the same placement.
Oh, you're just before dawn?
Yeah, mine's just before dawn as well.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, making Deliverance a full-on slasher for once. I'm all on board for it. I love the atmosphere, the outdoorsy nature of it all. The whole thing with the twins and the killers. A little synchronicity on my own personal thing, having a 3 and 2. It's the same one.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, I love the way that it pulls it off. One of the better unsung final girls. I love how she pulls everything off here. A lot of grit, a lot of spunk, just what I like in these kinds of films. And yeah, just like you said, there's a lot more going on under the surface, and the idea that they're not just brain dead teens out partying for a weekend, but a typically older crop of people than you would normally see in these kinds of films. It adds like a little bit more realness to it. It's not just a regular. It's not just a run of the mill, just teens in peril kind of a film, but something a little smarter, a little bit more, something with a bit more to say about it. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of this one as well. One of my favorites, definitely worth your time. So yeah, I wasn't expecting synchronicity like this actually.
Yeah. Well, that's nice. Yeah, so the movie that I'm directing this summer, that I said I wanted to do a camp slasher, and my proviso was that I wanted the people to be older. I didn't want teenagers. And I've been telling my cast and crew, because they've asked me, well, what are some movies that we can watch that kind of, inspired this? And Just Before Dawn is one. Um, but the other one, so this is my segue. The other one that almost made it to my list that I told them to watch is The Final Terror. I always kind of put these
Mm.
together because The Final Terror, these people are older, they're rangers or rangers in training or something, but they're out doing their job. And so I always kind of pair those together. That one to me doesn't have as many memorable scenes, but it was one that would have made it. Um, okay, so we're I've got to cheat on this. I got to tell you my other ones.
Yeah, go ahead.
Uh, the other two that I marked out, American Gothic from 1987. I love that movie. It is so fucked up. Um, I don't know why I marked it off. It was just like, okay, I had to pick one, so I did mark that off. And then this one, I kind of question if it's even a slasher. It has all the makings for a slasher, and the title certainly is a slasher. But Butcher Baker Nightmare Maker from 1981. There's not a lot of killing in it. It's really more bad cop work from Bo Svensson, but it is a fun one. And then drum roll, the one we've been talking about, I'm sure, The Mutilator, aka Fall Break.
Exactly.
Yes. So yeah, my friend Jeff is actually producing the sequel, and it is Buddy Cooper. He's coming back to do the sequel to that, which is exciting. So it really could go on our list, but if you had to eliminate some, I eliminated that one. And I'm guessing that's the same one you were talking about.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, I've got a couple honorable mentions here. I mean, you've already ticked off a couple, but I also have Graduation Day, which
Mm,
I've always had a lot of fun with. Again, another one that kind of got lost in the shuffle. I also have Pieces, just because I was kind of debating slasher giallo, and I was taking too long, so I just decided, it's European. I'll just lump it as a giallo and be done with it. But if I would have thought more about it, I probably could have legitimately put it on here and bumped something else off. But the other one that I really like, and another one that kind of gets lost in that 1981 shuffle, is Visiting Hours.
yeah.
Yeah, another one that again, there's a lot to like about it. Just it came out the wrong year. Kind of just got lost in the shuffle, but yeah, definitely one that I enjoy, and one of the better psychopath slashers, killers in the time period. I mean, it's Michael Ironside, so of course
Yeah.
that's to be expected. But yeah, him at his A game, just a lot of slimy, swarmy moments. William Shatner doing his you know doing his thing, whatever kind of a movie he thinks he's in. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's definitely a lot of fun and worthwhile. So yeah, another one that just got lost in the shuffle, but definitely would have made my list otherwise. So guess with that being said, oh, it's your number one.
Well, my number one happens to be a little movie that I don't consider a giallo called Pieces. So I will put it on the list, and it is my number one. This movie is so batshit crazy. It has so many things in it. And to say it's not a slasher, yes, it does have a giallo feel. Yes, you've got Christopher and Linda Day George, which technically makes it a giallo, I think.
Yeah,
Strangely enough, but it's just so insane. You can't not hear that stupid song that's piped over the piped over the speakers the whole time.
mm,
We've got just people like just getting hacked up by a damn chainsaw, and you gotta love that. I've just always thought this movie was so charming. I've never really understood why the main guy was such a stud. But
oh, there's reasons if you watch the full uncut version. There's reasons.
yes, yes, full and uncut, yes. But it's just so ridiculous, and I love it, and the ending is crazy, and I
Oh,
actually,
for real. Yeah, the ending is one of the real twist endings in the genre. If you
yes,
catch the double entendre there.
yes, and I actually even have the puzzle from,
Oh, nice.
yeah. So it was 1,000 pieces though, so every time I watch it, I mean, it was impossible to do because there's so much pink. The background's all pink with some blood splatter. It took me forever, and every time I watch that movie now, I always just am like, well, he only had like 20 pieces to put in his damn puzzle. But there's nothing more I can say about it. I just dig this movie. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, if I would have considered it more of a slasher, it's on my list for sure. I love that movie. It's in my top 15 of all time. It's just an absolute blast. But yeah, my number one, we talked about it. I unequivocally love this one. I don't think it's slow. I don't think it's boring. I love the atmosphere. I love the kills. I love the killer. I love most everything about it. I went with the Prowler.
All right.
Yeah, I'm one. I don't find this one slow at all. I think there's an engaging mystery. I love the red herring involving the neighbor. I love the cast of characters at the school. I think they're a lot of fun. I'm gonna go right ahead and say it. In terms of slasher makeup, this is Savini's best work. Yeah, I'm even gonna say it's better than Friday 4. This is I have absolutely no doubt in my mind this is Savini's best work. I mean, the head explosion, he's a master at that. No, go figure. But just the inherent brutality in a lot of this stuff. I mean, knives going through chins and protruding out through the faces. I mean, getting pitchfork through the gull, through the stomach. Bayonets into throats and all kinds of just brutal stuff. It's just I have so much fun with this.
It
I
is,
can
and I'm with
I can
you. I already said it. I don't know why people think it's boring or slow. I don't
Yeah, I
understand.
I don't get it either because I love that there's a legitimate red herring in the neighbor, that the way it plays it off with trying to the way that the film sets up whether or not he's just faking it or not. I love the way that they pull that off. I love that there's this legitimate mystery as to whether or not it's actually him.
Yes.
I do think that the actual killer is a bit of a cheat, just because it's one of those, oh well, we've seen him in the first 5 minutes and then disappears from the rest of the film, so of course we're going to forget about him, kind of a thing. But yeah, that's not necessarily much of a real detriment to the film, or like even much of a flaw. But yeah, to me, Prowler is easily number one. Yeah, I'm like you. I've never really considered it boring. I can see why. It's just for me personally, it doesn't come off as boring. So
Yeah. Like my only complaint about the movie is I really don't there's something about the main girl that I just don't dig. I don't know what it is. I've never been able to put my finger on it. Um, but that's about it. I mean, I don't know. I think it's cool. I like it. Cool killer. That actually would have been a cool killer to keep going. But I do like that he does show up on some different things, shirts and that type of stuff, despite only having one movie.
Huh. All right. So yeah, this was a lot of fun. Guess
Yeah.
yeah, got some crossover, which I expected, but definitely had a fun time. So
Yeah, enough of a variety
yeah.
to entertain these folks.
Yeah. So why don't you go ahead and let people know where they can find you, your work, and your films, your podcasts, and everything that you do.
Hey, I'm everywhere. You can find me like on Tubi. Um, yeah, I'm that highbrow. No, I'm on the Slumber Party Massacre podcast. If you are not a part of our Facebook group, get in there. It is five women who, no offense to Dawn or any of our other podcasting brothers out there, but we were all girls who were the token girl on podcasts. And to be a horror girl, you have to talk a little louder, you have to be a little smarter. You have to kind of, give the guys a run for their money. And we all felt this. And so we said, screw it, we're going to make our own podcast. And it's been like more fun than I ever could have imagined. Just a great set of girls. Lacey Lou, Heather Powell, Carly Allison, and Nikki Williams, who is Lacey's sister, who came on for one guest episode, and then we just adopted her because we loved her. So, so we have very wide range of ages and backgrounds, and I think we bring a lot of dimension to horror. So that is the main thing. If you are a podcast fan, I suggest you listen to us.
Yeah. You got a fan sitting right across the table from you, or across the internet computer screen. So
Yes. And I can
yeah.
honestly say that our podcasting brothers, you all know who that you are, have been our biggest champions, despite the fact we haven't let any of you guest on our show because you're male.
Hey, if it means doing a pizza style ending, I'll definitely try that
Yeah.
out to guest spot. But no, I completely understand the format, and I love what you guys do with it. So I've never really even considered doing anything. Just being the supporter that I am is, I would say, fine enough.
Yes. Yes. Thank you.
Mhm. All right. So with that, we'll leave you here with our choices for you to check out. As always, everything is down below in the show notes for you to check out Rebecca and her work, so you can find not just her films, but some of her other podcasting ventures as well. So, with that, we will see you next time with a fun new topic. Take care, everyone.
Bye.